What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and there have been some pretty interesting updates to D&D Beyond Maps. Just as a reminder, D&D Beyond Maps is the 2D virtual tabletop that you gain access to with a Master Tier D&D Beyond subscription. That is a separate virtual tabletop from Project Sigil, which is the 3D almost, sort of video game almost perspective virtual tabletop. Those are two different virtual tabletops, and they are two different teams working on them. So just because we're getting updates on one or the other doesn't mean we're going to get them on both. But anyway, there's been some pretty interesting updates to D&D Beyond Maps. I just got to play with them yesterday because I've been using this for basically a year, and we've seen a ton of updates drop into D&D Beyond basically almost every 2 weeks, it seems. There seems to be some form of update. And this is a pretty interesting update that helps quite a bit, especially for folks with auras or kind of long-running emanation-based spells. So before we dive into that though, consider subscribing to the channel. It's been a little bit, and I'm sorry about the lack of content, but I have a whole bunch more coming for you. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, if you don't know how to get to D&D Beyond Maps, I'll show you real quick in this fake test campaign that I made. You'll go ahead and go to your campaign, and then here's where you would normally see all of your players, but you'll see this option right here that says Launch Maps, and you go ahead and click that, and it'll take you into your D&D Beyond map instance. Now, I don't have any maps selected here, but either way. So we're going to close that because I want to go over to here to show you what's new in maps. This is a little pop-up that you get. You can also turn this off if you click this little link at the bottom that says hide until next update. Then you won't see that every time. But the big one here is lock and group map elements, and I'll show you what that means. But basically, if you want to lock a group of enemies or party members or whatever together, or more importantly, lock an overlay to a character, you can do that relatively easily, and I'll show you how to do that in just a sec. It says DM can control whether or not players can lock or unlock map elements in the settings menu. I'll show you how to do that as well. A couple more keyboard shortcuts, nice and easy. I like this. V to go back to select. This is actually something we brought up in the last video, saying there was currently, if you are on another tool, no way to go back to the select tool, which is the little arrow over here on the left. There was no way to go back to that with a hotkey. You had to click on it. So V now allows you to do that, and P allows you to go to the pan tool, or you can hold spacebar. You can now roll initiative from character sheets. Now, that might sound like, oh, couldn't you always do that? Yes, but I'll explain what the difference is there. A couple of general improvements, and if you're a fan of Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting, those monsters are available in D&D Beyond Maps. So here I have just a generic map that I pulled from the generic map section. If you were to go to your map, drop down and open map browser, there is a basic map, so it just has like mushroom cave, water, boat, whatever. So I just grabbed the grass one, and here you can see is my party. Now, Bishop here is a paladin. So Bishop has an aura that emanates 10 feet from him, gives everybody the bonus to saves, also gives, in his particular instance, his initiative or his charisma modifier, or proficiency bonus rather, proficiency bonus to all initiative rolls. So what I could do is go into the overlay section, make a circle, we'll have it be red, and then I can go ahead and draw it out till 10 feet. Now, this doesn't exactly work if we center Bishop in there, so we can kind of stretch it out a little bit so that if we put Bishop sort of in the center, that's hitting 10 feet all around him, as you can see. And then with that there, we can go ahead and hit the Shift button, select Bishop, select the overlay. See, they're both selected, and we can go ahead and hit Group. And now, when we move Bishop around the map, that 10-foot overlay of his aura is now locked onto him. I will also point this out. I did see this in a comment that there is, you don't snap to grid in D&D Beyond Maps, and for some people that may be annoying, but you can kind of just position yourself where you want to be. And that also makes it much easier to not have to hamper folks with how things are going to be set up if you're like snapping to grid on things. So it's just kind of freeform. But now you know that this is the Paladin's aura. And obviously, like I said, you could change the color to be whatever color you'd like. You know, you could make it black or pink. You can also add a overlay pattern to it, like, right, if it's a healing aura, maybe this is like some sort of aura of vitality, or maybe it's some sort of death aura, right? And change the color. Maybe it's green, like some sort of poison cloud. Maybe there's a creature that has that and it travels with them everywhere. And now you get to see that on the map. So I really like this, again, for the purposes of, again, the paladin. So now the party knows when they're moving around the map. We don't have to say whether or not they're within 10 feet. They just can choose to be within 10 feet of the paladin. And there you go. And then over in our settings, let's see. We can go here and let's see. Players can group and ungroup map elements if you don't want your players, or lock and unlock map elements. If you don't want them messing with that, you can uncheck those. So if we were to see, you'll see now we have add to encounter, we have hide, so we want to make him not appear for other players. We have the group and ungroup, but we also have lock, which means I can't move him now. Or his overlay, it's locked. So his token is set wherever I place it, which is also a thing, like, if you know, like, monster the party's going to be facing is going to be in a certain way, you could just say, okay, lock them, and then no one has the capability of moving them. And then, or like, hey, I'm going to move my enemy monster here, and then I'm just going to lock them so that if we're tight quarters, the party can't accidentally grab the player or the enemy monster and move them somewhere else. Another thing also very useful for is our cleric also usually has spirit guardians. So we can go ahead and we move Bronson over. Let's move Bishop out of the way. We move Bronson, say, to here. We know that it has a 15-foot radius aura. So we can kind of center that. It needs to be a little bit bigger. Something like that, 15 feet or so. And then we can go ahead and hold shift, select Bronson, and then we can group those together. Maybe we want to make this have like a radiant pattern or something. Let's see. Radiant, because, why doesn't it jump to the bottom? I don't know why. We can make it radiant, and then there is our spirit guardians now moving around. This could be something for like a beholder eye ray. Maybe if something has, like, again, some sort of cloud of poison or other thing that travels around with them, you now have access to that relatively easily. And then again, obviously, it's just as simple as ungrouping, and then you can move things separately. Also, if you wanted to say, let's say all of our party is going to travel so that they always stay within Bishop's aura, we could go ahead and just select all of them and then hit group. And now the whole party will move as one unit. So that could be beneficial, especially if you're playing with a larger map with a lot of enemies and you want to move them as units. You can do something like that. And then obviously we could just hit shift. I think it's shift G to ungroup, or to move. Actually, sorry, shift allows you to, shift G allows you to move things within the grouping. So if we want to move something like that, then it's all grouped and it's shifted around. Or we can just hit ungroup, and then we could move, hit ungroup, and then move our players and everything individually. Again, as mentioned over here, you can now, if you were to filter, we could go down here to sources and Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting, and you'll see we'll have access to all of Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting monsters with their art. I don't have this in my library, so I can't pull those in, but you can see that they're here, and then obviously you can drop them in here to get those tokens, and then be able to pull up everything just straight from that. So if we were to go ahead and clear all of our filters, clear, apply, and then say drop an Aarakocra. By the way, always I found this out. Wherever is kind of the center of where you're looking when you summon a token. So if we were like over here and we summon a token, it's going to appear over here. So the center of wherever your screen view is where enemies will be summoned when you summon them. Another simple thing I'd like to see, just thinking about it, would be like a drop down if I wanted to summon this, but I wanted to summon it automatically hidden. Because let's say, obviously I know I could go like way off to the side here and add an Aarakocra, so it's like out of the way. And you could obviously drop them off of the confines of the map, so you're kind of like out of bounds, so your players aren't really seeing that. But it would be great if I had an option to add creature invisibly or add creature as hidden so that I didn't have to worry about accidentally dropping, say, an Aarakocra in the middle of the map where the party is. I could just do that while it is hidden. But we are seeing serious improvements here on a lot of different aspects for D&D Beyond maps. Another thing I did notice is when I select a token, you can see that the kind of silver ring around my character turns red. I'd love if we could just, because you can add a token color ring around somebody like this, but I would love if we could just make that red ring for selection. If we could maybe make that a different color for different aspects, because I do think there's a handful of, I mean, I guess you could do something like shrink down an aura. This would be a ton of work, but you could shrink it down and then get it to be just about the size of the token. And then you could group it. And right now you can see that the overlay appears behind the token with the token in the forefront. It would be great because probably I would say, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, the most common sort of conditions that players end up encountering are bloodied right now, right, in 2024, right? Something's at half health, or prone, and probably poison. So, like, you see how I shrunk that overlay and it's basically just kind of floating behind Bishop, and you can see he's sort of got this red aura around him. Now, I didn't do a great job aligning those overlays. We could ungroup him, kind of put him more in the middle like that, and then select this. So now you can see he's kind of got this like red ring around him, and it's got this glowing aura. I would love if we could repurpose this in some way, or possibly get us the option to superimpose that aura, the overlay in front of him. So it basically just provide that sort of slight red sheen to his entire token. And it'd be great if we could do this with like a quick macro menu or something. So if I wanted to say that Bishop is bloodied, I could do that. But more importantly, this would be for the monsters. So they'd sort of have like a red sort of overlay over them. And that way you could see that they're bloodied, because currently there is no way to denote conditions. I guess you could do something like use these rings to say, okay, this guy's bloodied, so he's now got this red ring around him, which is a thing you could do, but it does add quite a bit to the map, and it can kind of start to look busy. Also, the names are really big, and that's kind of something I wish there was an option where I could toggle off see names, or have it almost be like a tooltip only, where if I mouse over it, then the name will appear. The best thing I found is if you just hit enter, or sorry, if you go to rename, hit a space, and then hit apply, it removes the name and just kind of leaves a single space with this sort of gray bubble. That does help to lessen the overall busyness of the virtual tabletop. So I would love names being toggleable on and off. And again, if we could maybe do some sort of like color a token a certain color to represent things would be interesting, but only if it could be done relatively quickly. If I had to do what I just did with Bishop, where I highlighted, made the individual thing, hit it behind him, that's too much. That's too much effort. So I can't really show you this because it's on the. Well, I can show you to some degree. So what was happening before is if I were to start a combat and say, start combat. Whoops, let's go ahead and remove. Let's end this combat. And let's just add all the tokens. So we started this combat here, and you can see everybody's initiative. Right now, if I had told my party, hey, go ahead and roll initiative. So Bronson rolls initiative. He clicks on the initiative button on his character sheet and rolls initiative. It would pop up in the game log over here, but that was it. Like, I'd see initiative, and then I'd have to then take that number and then go type it. He told me he got a 15. I'd have to go over here, type in 15 for it to appear. Now, a very simple quality of life is that the players, when they roll initiative from their character sheet, if whatever appears here in the game log will auto appear over here in the initiative roll. So it saves you the time of doing that. The only other thing I wish could be there, and again, probably a thing specific to my party, is because we have an Oath of Watchers Paladin who gives his proficiency bonus to all allies within 10 feet. if there was a way when you went to roll initiative to have a situational bar that I could just say, okay, add +4, and then it allows me to just add that, because right now, like, it was a nice quality of life feature when everybody could just roll and then I'd get it, but then I also still have to edit. So if Bronson rolled that 15, I'd have to go and add 4 if he's next to Bishop to make it 19. So I would still end up having to do some degree of manual input, but that may be just because of the situation in my party. Another thing that would be nice is if I'm here in the stat block, I can't roll monster initiative from their stat block. So what I could do is come down here. The best thing I can do is say if they have advantage or disadvantage, it just rolls. And like that's a way to do it, which is fine. But it would be nice if I wanted to be able to just click this to roll initiative from the character sheet. But that's not like a huge thing for me. But I think that covers all of the major updates. Was again the ability for players to roll from their character sheet and to have it auto-populate in the initiative tracker, which is very nice for me. Makes my life a little bit easier. Again, I think this is great with the opportunity to be able to lock down overlays and to tie them to characters or tie multiple characters together, right? If you're, like I said, if you're moving formations, being able to group a group of characters or enemies together is fantastic. And again, just little quality of life things as we continue that I'd love to see. Like I said, maybe the opportunity to put a logo on here or just like put a shader over it to make it look a little bit of a different color to denote the fact that they're inflicted with some sort of condition. And then the opportunity to hide when you bring in a new token. Again, knowing that the token automatically appears in the center of whatever the view of what you're in helps a lot. Because like I said, it'll be like right here. And if we move over here, it'll be up here. So being able to enter them as hidden would be a nice feature. And I don't think that's too much in the terms of coding, but either way. And then obviously the one that we all really want is the capability to see dice on the screen when we roll. Now, let me ask you guys this. We know from, if you've learned anything from playing with other virtual tabletops that have that kind of stuff, physical rolling dice on the screen adds a lot to the resource usage. And obviously, if you paid to buy special dice on D&D Beyond, you'd want to see them. But what if it could be something as simple as there's a standard set of dice that just everybody uses when they use D&D Beyond maps? Maybe it's just the black and white dice or the black and red dice, whatever it is. And then if you roll, regardless of what you're rolling on your individual character sheet, we're all seeing the die roll on here, and it's just like a generic set of dice. Obviously, that removes the creativity and the customizability of you having your own set of dice. But if it was one set of standard dice across the board for everyone or no dice, which one would you prefer? I think we stand a better chance of getting one singular set of dice that applies to everyone because of the lack of resource intensiveness of having to render all of these individual dice, especially the ones with cool effects on them. But let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I'd also love to hear if you have any other suggestions or thoughts for things you'd like to see in D&D Beyond maps. More and more stuff seems to be coming just about every 2 weeks, so we're getting new stuff in there, which is awesome. And I like to try to see what happens, and it seems, relatively quickly after we suggest some of these things, stuff seems to appear in the program. So that's always pretty cool as well. So feel free to sound off in the comments with things you'd like to see. Like I said, we're seeing a lot of improvements and a lot of little things that are adding a ton of quality of life here. We are leaps and bounds where we were a year ago when we first started using D&D Beyond maps. And honestly, if you're already invested in the D&D Beyond platform in the form of a master tier subscription, this may be the best bang for your buck. And I think this is true for a virtual tabletop that's pretty simple to use, better than just Theater of the Mind if you want to have a map or something for positioning and you're playing online or on tablets or computers or what have you. It's easy to pick up. I've been figuring most of this stuff out just as I go. And again, I've been putting out videos to kind of cover the different aspects of it. So I think it's great. I think it's only gotten better, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.